Hello, my name is Sapphire, and I will be reading Central American Adventures Part 1, A Visit to Teotihuacan. 2 years ago, I went on a trip to Mexico and Guatemala. The day we arrived in Mexico City was my mom's birthday. It probably wasn't a very happy birthday because she hates to fly, but we tried hard to make it nice anyway. The bus ride to our hotel room was magical. All the landmarks in Mexico City flew by in the dark. The clock inside the taxi showed military time. Instead of saying 8 p.m., for instance, the clock said 20 o'clock. Finally, after a ride with many pictures taken, we reached the hotel. The clock on the hotel had military time, too. It was an expensive hotel, but all the food was free. We also got free Mexican candies, weather reports, and a shoe shiner. Before we went to bed that night, we gave my mom her birthday card. After that, we spent our time drinking in the city. We saw the painting, Our Lady of Guadalupe. We shopped at an open-air market. We walked down a pedestrian street and occasionally saw people wearing costumes, including a man painted to look like a statue. There were many interesting shops on that street, and we shopped in most of them. One store had everything from socks to skincare to stuffed animals. Outside some stores, men offered advertising cards to passers-by. Slightly confused, I took one. My mom told me not to take the cards offered to me. No gracias, I told the man from there on out. The open-air market was amazing, too. There was a huge flag standing proudly in the square and the signs that showed pictures of dolls and props artists had made using turnips. I suppose the most special thing about Mexico City was the gorgeous churches. The cool church was incredibly peaceful compared to the scorching outside. In one church there was an enormous, almost life-size nativity. The hardest thing for me was not being able to reach out and touch one of the figures. Another church had a beautiful garden. All in all, it was an awesome trip, but the best was yet to come. It was time to visit the remains of the ancient city, which was home to crumbling walls, the Pyramid of the Moon, and of course, the biggest pyramid of all, the Pyramid of the Sun, or Teotihuacan. The car bumped along the dusty road. My father and the taxi driver were chattering away in Spanish. I was bubbling with excitement. We were almost there. Finally, we drove to the parking lot and paid. Wow! I'd expected that we would be alone when we saw the pyramids, but no. The crowd of people was gargantuan. The first pyramid we saw was a smaller one. It wasn't the Pyramid of the Moon or the Sun. But even though it wasn't that tall in comparison to them, it was still quite daunting to climb the steep steps to the top. My mother stayed down. She doesn't like heights. The scorching sun burned my neck. But how could I not enjoy climbing the walls of some ancient building? Suddenly, a shrill screeching sound came from behind a pyramid. A jaguar? Yes! But as it turned out, it was just a whistle that made a sound like a jaguar. At first, it was exciting to hear the constant scream of the jaguar whistle, but eventually it became annoying. But no matter, it was time to climb Teotihuacan, and surely the sound of the whistle couldn't reach to its top. My dad and I began climbing the stone steps. My dad hadn't been at the top in 30 years. Every section of the pyramid brought us closer to its peak. About halfway there, a taxi driver who had come along with us to Teotihuacan said as another jaguar whistle rattled through the crowd, "What is the word in English?" He spoke mostly Spanish, but some English, and didn't know the word for jaguar. "Jaguar," my dad replied. A family asked Dad to take their picture. I peered down the side of the pyramid, trying to see my mother and sister, who had decided not to climb the Pyramid of the Sun. And there they were. I waved at them. When my dad was taking a picture of the couple who had given him their phone, I reviewed my surroundings. Most of the time, the edges of the pyramid were fenced off, but a few feet from me was a drop-off. I walked over to it and peered down the side of the pyramid. Looking down from so high up made me dizzy, and of course I didn't want to fall off, so I stepped back. My dad was finished taking the photo and began to climb the pyramid again. But I stopped him. It was so high up, and I wasn't sure I could continue. So we headed back down. I regret that I didn't climb to the top because I wasn't really afraid. I was just nervous about experiencing the unknown. Very soon we were at the bottom, where we met my mother and sister. "Look," I breathed, "hot air balloons." And sure enough, there were hot air balloons floating in the sky. That's part 1.